What's going on? Welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to talk to you about SoundHound. I want to go over some expectations for this upcoming week, what might cause some volatility in the stock price, and go over everything else you need to know. But first, make sure you guys hit that thumbs up. And with that, let's get right to it. So this upcoming week is going to be quite interesting and also at the same time quite volatile because we have just in among itself a lot of companies unveiling their earnings that can move the market, such as Tesla, Google, Intel, a lot of big names, and as well a lot of speculative stocks. So a lot of different sectors over the last couple of weeks have been hitting like all-time highs. So one way to humble stocks or to potentially justify their push higher is earnings. So we have a lot of big names this week. Even aside from that though, on a macro standpoint, Monday we don't really have all that much. Tuesday we have Powell, and in fact a lot of Fed speakers throughout the whole week, and a lot of different various reports, all encumbering manufacturing, such as Richmond. I believe we have the S&P that is coming out on the Wednesday. So a lot of manufacturing data, and so I feel like a lot of individuals are going to be correlating all of this information with how impactful the tariffs have been. So that's going to be something to keep in mind. Money supply that's coming out at noon. I don't really anticipate that to be that big of a deal, but you never know. If they've been kind of amping it up more than output, then of course the market might potentially jump to the conclusion that there might be higher inflation. So that's something to keep in mind. Wednesday we do have existing home sales, but based on a lot of the kind of home data last week, it should come in better than anticipated. Forecast for that right now is 4%. And then aside from that, we do have on Thursday the Chicago Fed National Activity Index. Forecast for that is negative, so negative 0.1, so nothing crazy. Benchmark is 0, so again, just kind of use that ultimately. So it's kind of in line. So that judges a lot of things. It's kind of more of a basket item type of thing, but nonetheless that's going to be coming out on Thursday. Initial jobless claims, and then like I mentioned, the manufacturing. This is all from the S&P Global. So we have manufacturing, composite, services. Again, a lot of people are going to be correlating all of this with tariffs. And then of course, speaking of tariffs, most likely we'll be hearing some updates associated to Japan and Europe, and potentially even some other ones that maybe haven't been announced yet. But that's what the market is really going to be caring about, is Europe. So far we've kind of left Friday not really in a good place for that, and then Japan, same goes for that. It shows that they're kind of negotiating, all of which everything I mentioned has the ability to really move the market higher. Aside from that though, specific to SoundHound, the only thing that they have coming up this week is this, and a lot of people are very excited for this. So this is coming out to July the 23rd. Depending on how things are, if you want me to live stream it, I can definitely do so. I've already registered, so I'm going to be kind of participating anyways, but if you want me to live stream it, I can definitely do it. I think in reality this is very hyped up, like I said, so this could potentially cause a nice push higher on the 22nd leading into this. Aside from that though, it's most likely just going to piggyback off the broader market. Shorts, surprisingly, over the last week have been returning, so it kind of peaked at almost 35% short interest. Going into this upcoming week though, 32.97%, 119.1 million shares overall are being shorted, and that does equate to $1.54 billion. Cost to borrow average is kind of on the low end, same with the minimum, so some brokers are trying to incentivize some shorting, unfortunately, but nonetheless I do anticipate shorts to be fairly active this upcoming week, with it closing above that 1250 range. That does mean that the 1250 and below strike prices are essentially all in the money. So looking at this past week, which was a monthly chain, mind you, you have a lot of volume. So looking here, you do have ultimately 9,000 at that 1250, 22,000 at that 12, 7,000 at 1150, 13,000 at 11, 13,000 at the 10, and then of course at the $8 one. So you have a lot of options that do need to be covered by market makers, because market makers don't have a lot of volatile stocks such as SoundHound in their inventory. So meaning they'll have to go to the open market and buy it. From what we can see on the dark pool, there was one big transaction for 5.07 after hours on Friday. So it is fair to assume that was market makers covering some, but that definitely does not cover everything. So most likely you'll see a nice push higher on Monday as market makers cover the rest. So again, that's something to keep in mind. That might set hopefully the nice momentum for this whole week. One thing to take note of though is over the weekend, cryptocurrency is holding strong, getting a lot of volume, and in many cases moving up significantly. So that's usually a good indication that people's appetite for risk is on the table, meaning this upcoming week, the equity market is going to be the same. So that's kind of a good thing for SoundHound, because in many cases, it's kind of a trifecta type of stock. So squeeze play, momentum stock, and in a momentum stock, you need a lot of capital to get in. So let me know your general thoughts on that. But with it closing at 1281, it is trading between this R1 and this pivot. So 1182 is going to be a strong support. Just watch for that to hold. I don't really see that being touched this week unless it comes down to companies unveiling their earnings, such as Google. That might be that big kind of kryptonite in the broader market that could cause a significant pullback. So 1182 is going to be something just to watch for. Again, just take note of all this if you are wanting to dollar cost average down or whatever. And then 1294 is going to be that next strong target / resistance. So kind of closed right below that on Friday. Friday it did break above that, but didn't really have enough to stay there. So 1294, just watch for that to get above early on. But with all of those options, it is fair to assume that it will be closing above that. 1364 followed by 1476 is going to be the next strong target / resistance points. There hasn't been any new ratings aside from the one that did come out 5 days ago, which was rather odd. There wasn't really anything to kind of justify that. But again, this upcoming week, I don't really anticipate any new analyst ratings. Most likely it'll be just SoundHound's upcoming earnings. But SoundHound just announces their earnings like within 1 week from the actual date, which is very short notice, but it's what SoundHound typically does do. So most likely we'll be having that come out in the next several weeks. Aside from that though, on the actual chart itself, things are looking pretty good. A lot of volatility over the last couple of trading days, but overall it is kind of moving up. As far as stochastic RSI, it is rather neutral, so it's not really overbought nor oversold. So there's a lot more room for it to essentially run up, assuming that the sentiment is there. One thing to take note of though is the super trend is still bullish. So overall, you're going to also have a nice push higher and a certain level of support being done by algos. So every time it is above that super trend, shows that algorithmic trading is going to be kind of pushing it higher. So that's again going to be really good in SoundHound's case and has really worked out for it in the past. So something to keep in mind overall. Aside from all of that fun stuff though, just watch for that ultimately 200-day moving average that is sitting at 1057. But right now the setup going into this upcoming week looks pretty good. Like it does really want to move up significantly. So let me know your thoughts on SoundHound. Where do you see things going for this upcoming week? Realistically, I do feel based on here that it will be trading between this R3 and this R2. No matter what, there will be a lot of volatility, but I feel like it will settle between that 1364 and 1476 this week. Again, I could be wrong. I know a lot of people want me to say $20 and it's going to be $25 or $30, but realistically, given everything, I do feel that is going to be something to keep in mind. One thing as well I do want to bring up though is you might have some extra volatility because of this. So the S&P is currently sitting at 6296. In the past, every time the S&P has really hit some key resistance levels, it causes some just psychological distress. Just people cannot really fathom, hey, we're at the 5,000 mark. Hey, we're at the 6,000 mark. Like it just causes people to freak out. So 6350 is going to be that next kind of key resistance level. So most likely once the S&P does hit that, people are going to be starting to freak out and say, hey, we have gone up too much, too fast, we're at the peak, and that might in among itself cause a little bit of a pullback. We've seen that happen at the 5,000 and also 6,000 range, and look at how that's turned out. It just keeps on moving higher, but there is that initial psychological distress that market just cannot really handle it. So just don't be surprised if the market does start to go down. A lot more analysts start to come out and say, hey, you know what, it's due for a pullback around that 63.50. So again, it might happen, might not. Just want to throw it out there, so don't be surprised for some extra volatility. Nonetheless, I'm pretty optimistic about this upcoming week. Let me know your thoughts on SoundHound. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up and subscribe. I always greatly appreciate that. And then pop over to my Patreon. I do give buy signals on stocks, options, crypto, many of which have been absolutely on point and bangers. Definitely worthwhile to pop over there and take a look. With all that said, appreciate all of you watching.